Tales from the Tavern, The Wizard. Part 2. The next morning, when I appeared from my cottage, unscathed from the previous night's adventure, my reception was of a mixed nature. Some townsfolk proclaimed that I was surely touched by God, that I was not ensnared by the wizard or devoured by the wolf due to my unwavering faith in our Lord. Others accused me of witchcraft and consorting with demons. How could a mortal man be safe from such dark forces unless he himself was cursed? Despite the hostility and admiration I received, I thought it prudent to not reveal the complete details of that night. Maybe in time they will come to understand. A fortnight passed until I was ready to pay the wizard another visit. As per custom, I shared a few pints with me mates at the tavern. They expressed deep concern over my behaviour and implored me not to go back. They insisted that I got lucky, that God took pity on my foolish soul and spared me from a horrible death or an eternity of servitude. I told them the complete truth. They sat in utter silence until I finished. Though they were my close friends, I could tell they were not convinced. They made one last desperate attempt to dissuade me, but I assured them I will be safe. I gathered my things, waved goodbye, and took my leave. When I arrived at the wizard's cottage, I called out to him. He opened the door and looked down at me with a knowing smile. He said I was a curious one, and that he knew I would return. We shared drinks and engaged in small talk for a time. Then, abruptly, the wizard put on a grave tone.
It is important that we now continue our previous discussion, which of course is why you are here. The future is a double-edged sword, and it is sharper than the sharpest longsword a master blacksmith can produce, mind you. While desperation and suffering are rampant in many parts of the world, there are, however, strong nations that exist in safety, mostly, and unbelievable prosperity. Most of its citizenry are blessed with incredible wealth, living and eating better than the nobility of our time. Even the poorest peasant of that time lives like royalty. They reside in homes nearly the size of a small castle, and whose occupations are located many kilometers away. They operate large steel contraptions faster than any horse that bear them many leagues. These steel horses require no water or hay, but instead drink of a strange substance that is produced through a complicated alchemical process. Imagine, my friend, where you're able to travel to the royal tournament in London and be back home before sunset.
The wizard paused, obviously giving me a non-verbal cue to ask a question. So I said, "These steel beasts sound fascinating. But why would anyone need these contraptions? Can they not barter for food and clothing in their own village? Is there no blacksmith or tailor to take an apprentice?" The wizard smiled and said,
In the future, because of the steel horses, everything is spread out far beyond the eye can see. The butcher, the tanner, the grocer, the blacksmith. Nobody grows their own food or produces their own wool. Everything they need, they purchase from various guilds with a currency made of paper. This is why their lives are dependent on the steel horses. Like I said, a double-edged sword.
This was something that utterly confused me. Why would anyone be so dependent for life's necessities on a guild? Why do they not shear their own sheep? If there is a bad harvest, do they all starve? And what value is there in a piece of paper? I had many questions, and the wizard could tell. He held up his hand.
In time, my friend, in time. With each visit you will understand more and more, God willing. But this concludes our conversation. The weather is good today, so I think I will try my luck on the river. Goodbye, my friend.
Once again, the entire journey home, I was deep in thought, desperately trying to understand what the wizard had told me. I made my way to the outskirts of the forest, where the trees met with the fields, and decided to stop for a quick rest. I unslung my belongings and placed them neatly next to a large oak tree and sat down. I must have been so distracted by my own thoughts that I did not see the man approach me. He was young, probably around my age, and wielded a long knife of dubious quality. I stood up and grabbed my hatchet. I challenged the man's intentions and raised my weapon. This did not seem to deter the man, as he continued to approach me in a most unfriendly manner. He pointed the knife at me.
I don't care what the other townsfolk say. I know you are a servant of Satan, consorting with demons and wizards in that accursed forest. I will not let you bring misfortune down on our village because of your heresy.
Before I could speak, the man lunged at me, but not so gracefully. I swung my hatchet at the brigand, praying I would not miss. The blade connected with his hand, severing several fingers. The knife dropped, but with grimace of pure hate, he produced a smaller knife from his belt, grasped it in his other hand, and charged at me again. I was caught off guard and knew the knife would be plunged directly into my chest. Suddenly, there was a sharp pop, and I could see a metal string connected to a needle protruding from the man's leg. The man fell to the ground and convulsed violently, like the poor souls when they are possessed by evil spirits. In an instant, it was all over. His eyes rolled back in their sockets, and he went limp. I turned around and saw the wizard holding some strange device that appears to have been the source of the string and needle. What sorcery is this? I thought.
Do not worry. He is not dead, but he will be simple the rest of his life. He will not speak of this encounter, and you have not committed murder. Now go before we are spotted.
I did not need to be told twice. I gave my thanks to the wizard and ran the rest of the way home.